Hey guys, what's up? Okay, so I'm going to be completely honest with you. There are way better channels out there than me when it comes to true crime. This is my second shot at it here. And I'm just basically an armchair detective hanging out. This case has really haunted me. It's the case of the Queens woman who was found in the duffel bag. And I'll be honest with you, again, there are way better channels out there. Like, for example, like Gray Hughes Investigates and all those other channels that have been around for quite some time. So most of you are probably going to hit the back button if you are true crime seasoned, watchers out there of other channels. So I apologize in advance for my rustiness and rough around the edges approach to this because I did absolutely zero preparation. I'm just sitting here on my computer right now and reading about this case, finding out about updates because as we all want to find out who did this, why it was done, what was the motive, what was the reason for doing this to this poor woman, and it has a special meaning to me because I grew up in Queens. I grew up actually in an area very, very close to Forest Hills, Queens, New York, probably about like 2 miles away. And so this area, I've traveled through it multiple, many times throughout my lifetime. And okay, so this story, actually, most of you already know about it, but basically, a woman who's actually by the name, her name is very hard to pronounce, Orsolya Gaal or Gaal. I'm gonna call her Orsi. Okay, I know in some language, Orsi means little bear, and so we'll call her Orsi just for pronunciation's sake because I will butcher her. Oh God, that didn't sound right, and I'm not even joking here. That just popped out of my mouth. I mean, I will butcher the. Okay, I'm not even being funny here. I will make it sound much more awful than I'm making it sound right now. As you can tell, I'm awkward as hell. I have bad anxiety and I'm not a very good speaker. All right, so let's find out more about what happened to her. 51 years old, stabbed 60 times in her neck, torso, and arm in the early hours of Saturday morning. Down in Queens, New York, in a very, very nice part of Queens, New York. Now, most of you think of New York as New York City. You don't think of New York as one big giant state that is very vast. And everyone always thinks of New York City and they think of Manhattan. Basically, there are several boroughs in New York City that make up New York City, Queens being one of them. And I grew up in Queens when it was more suburban. Back in the the 70s and the 80s, there was parts of Queens that were actually like this area where Orsi is from. And then it changed, and the demographics of the neighborhoods changed where a lot of I'm not, by the way, being racist or anything, but more foreign people moved in from other countries, diversity, the lack of people having higher paid jobs where they can keep the neighborhoods well kept, like Orsi's neighborhood, changed a lot of areas of Queens. And so now mostly Queens, there's some pockets of really good areas like Orsi's where there are $1 to $2 million homes, but pretty much Queens is more of an urban type of congested, heavily trafficked area. Lots of buildings, but lots of private homes too. But the private homes over there are very small, nothing like Orsi's, more like, I'm going to say like bungalows, mostly attached houses. If you live in Queens, in a heavily populated area of Queens, let me tell you something I did, and it was awful, especially when it came to traveling. So if you had your own car and you lived in an apartment, or you lived in one of the smaller homes, not in Orsi's area, but a more congested area of Queens, it would sometimes take you 20 minutes to park your car and get to your apartment or home. So for example, if I went to the supermarket and I had my two babies with me, my toddlers, and I had a whole car full of food from the grocery store, sometimes I would have to park about 5 or 6 blocks away from my co-op just to actually get back to my apartment. So pretty much that's, I'm trying to describe, give you a layout of Queens. It was awful for me and I moved to Long Island. Okay, So basically, Orsi, 51, was stabbed 60 times in her neck, torso, and arm in the early hours of Saturday morning. Now, she was married for, I believe, 20 years. Her husband was away with the older son. She had two sons, one 13 and one 17. The husband was away with the son, scouting out colleges. I think they went to several states. She was at home with her 13-year-old. And the night of her murder, she went, I believe, to some kind of concert. It's a little vague. A concert or someplace in Manhattan at Lincoln Center. And apparently afterwards, she went to a bar. So this is the most updated information that I could find. They have surveillance of her sitting in a bar for 40 minutes. It looked as though she was waiting for somebody. Obviously, somebody didn't show up. And later on that evening, she was murdered. And the next morning, they found a bloody duffel bag on the side of it's right by a parkway called the Jackie Robinson Parkway by Forest Park. Forest Park is a very, very large park. I used to enjoy it as a kid. It's one of the most beautiful parks throughout Queens. There's not too many because it's mostly, city. But this area has a lot of pluses to it. Now, around Orsi's area are pockets of city living. So you see her home, and let's scroll down. You'll see her home right here. It seems like a beautiful little Tudor home. It looks like it's in a almost like country-ish type of setting, suburban. But if you go maybe about a half a mile one way or a mile the other way, it's mostly city. You'll see lots of stores and shops and traffic, and Queens Boulevard, which is a very, very, very it's rough driving Queens Boulevard, especially during rush hour. And then there's this little pocket of a little suburban type of area. Okay, the last she was seen, she was sitting in the bar. She went home, and they found her duffel bag the next day on the side of the road by the Jackie Robinson Parkway, which leads to many different outlets and expressways getting you to Brooklyn and to Long Island and to other parts of Queens. Now, I did another video about this, and what was really strange was, I'm not gonna lie, immediately my thoughts went straight to the 13-year-old. And I shouldn't be accusing anybody of anything. I thought something was fishy, had to do something with the family, maybe the husband, maybe something a little shady going on. I looked at this surveillance photo, and it looked like a kid to me. Immediately, I'm like, the kid was the only buddy that was home with her. How did he not hear any screaming, any attack going on? Something's a little odd here. But then when you think about it rationally, how could a 13-year-old kid drag a duffel bag with wheels on it with a woman that weighs at least 100, if not 125 to 150 pounds, up a flight of basement stairs where she apparently was killed? I believe they say now she was killed on the first floor and dragged down to the basement. But how could any 13-year-old child bring up a bag like that, up a flight of basement stairs, and drag it 9 blocks away? It just doesn't make sense. He was probably a typical teenager wearing headphones. My kids wear headphones. I can scream on the top of my lungs, and they could be standing within maybe 6 feet from me, and sometimes they don't even pay attention or hear. So, this gets really strange. So then you think right away, hitman. The husband found out she was, stepping out of the marriage, which there are reports of it. And you think, okay, he hired a hitman. But then some other evidence starts coming forward, and you start to say, oh, okay, it's starting to make sense now. So, okay, here's the surveillance, and now basically it doesn't look like a kid. You know what I mean? We see someone wearing a hoodie, someone dragging the bag, what appears to be possibly a backpack, and carrying a box or a purse, maybe her purse, or some kind of item in one hand, and dragging the bag with the other. Okay, the really weird part is that now news is coming out about an apparent handyman that they cannot find, which is quite strange. They're looking. Now, there's a $3,500 reward. Now, that tells me something. $3,500 for a reward is not very high. That means, in my guess, now I'm not a police person, I'm not law enforcement, But to me, that's telling me that pretty much they're, they don't need to put a high reward because they're getting there. You know what I mean? They're about to probably zone in on somebody, and they're just basically looking for someone to come forward, probably with more surveillance to help them nab this guy to build up a case. Okay, so here's some of the facts. Let's get to the facts here. Okay, they believe that she knew her killer. So here's what I'm thinking. Apparently, from what I've read in some of the reports, the latest reports, this person knew where there was a key to the house. The handyman knew the house well, and she had an apparent affair with the handyman. So this is a crime of passion. Any police or law enforcement person will tell you, anyone who is stabbed 60 times, that is rage. That is somebody who's not only possibly intimately involved with somebody, but there's some kind of relationship, whether it be an emotional or sexual relationship. There's something that caused them to become irate, enraged, and angry. You don't just stab someone 60 times unless you are really, really filled with hatred or rage or anger. Okay, so the son that was home with her was questioned. They released him. Apparently there was surveillance throughout the neighborhood, of course catching that guy with the duffel bag. Now if it was the son, rationally let's think, if the blood trail led from the house all the way to the dumping area, which is what they found as part of the evidence, you would see on doorbell cameras, like the Ring doorbells, the son coming back to the house if it was him. So since that wasn't found on any surveillance, basically this kid's in the clear. That's my belief. Immediately your mind goes to suspicion. I mean, the human mind goes there. You know what I mean? You think, oh, he had to have done it. He's the only one there. It's sort of strange. There's, no screaming going on that he heard. I mean, and then the text. The killer sent a text to the husband on her phone saying, "Your family is next." Basically, so you're thinking, well, if that's true, why did he leave the kid alive? So then your mind goes straight to, it's the kid. The 13-year-old did it. But let's just face it, a 13-year-old isn't going to be able to drag a woman's body upstairs like that and 9 blocks away. Now, I watched the surveillance video of the guy walking, and he was walking very briskly, very fast. He didn't have a powerful stature, but this person to me seems athletic. Somehow or some way, he was pulling it almost effortlessly and had a long stride. And at first I thought this could possibly be even a woman, maybe an angry wife of somebody she was having an affair with. But when I saw that stride, it was totally a stride that you'd see a man have. Okay, so that was another like a thing, like a light bulb that went off in the head. Okay, so here's the latest. Let's check it out. The text also said to the husband, "Your wife sent me to jail some years ago. I'm back." It said, along with a warning not to contact the police. Now that could be somebody trying to throw everything off, if you know what I mean. So I take this little text that he sent with a grain of salt. But so far it's leaning back to some kind of handyman, which is a little telling here. So I hope they find the so-called handyman who had known the layout of the house, known where, the key was to get in there. Now, what I'm thinking is, if she was at the bar expecting someone to meet her there, or seemed to be, you could tell when someone's looking at their watch, looking at the door, looking around, looking for somebody, that they're waiting for somebody. Apparently, bartenders are good at reading people. They know how to read the crowd. And I think the bartender said she looked like she was waiting for somebody, apparently. But, I'm speculating here. So the thing that's making me wonder, if this guy had known where the key was, he had a layout of the house, he was in that house before. He probably maybe said, "Oh, I'll meet you at the bar," never showed up. She went back home. So it gave him time to actually get the key and get in the house and hide somewhere, jump out, surprise her, and basically, murder her. That's my guess. This is just a speculation. Again, I'm not a detective. Just a regular person just trying to use rationalizations to think about this. This is just really strange. Now, if you figure a $2 million house in a neighborhood with $1 million houses, a lot of people must have had Ring doorbell cameras or surveillance. So you got to figure, you got to wait for a lot of people to hand it over to the NYPD. They're building a case. They can't go straight to arrest. They have to build the best case they can. So this guy, when they do catch him, can't just walk. So I guess we're going to all have to be patient over here, But this is a really, really strange case. Immediately, you go from it's the husband, he hired a hitman, to the teenage kid that was home at the time, to maybe the husband and the son didn't go away and they were home and they did it. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just the oddest case that I've seen in a while. And I've seen some odd ones. So let's see if there's any other late information. I'm going to actually Google it. Let's Google her name here. And I'm going to go and, here we go. Ex-handyman lover. Let's go to this one. This one is strange. Okay. The New York Post says ex-handyman lover who knew of spare key sought by cops in New York City, mom Orsolya Gaal's slaying. Sources. Cops want to question a former handyman lover of slain Queen's mom. I'm going to call her Orsi. Orsolya Gaal, who had an intimate knowledge of her home, including where the family kept the spare key, the Post has learned. The man, who has not yet been formally identified as a person of interest or suspect in the gruesome slaying, is believed to have had a romantic relationship with the 51-year-old married mother of two before the affair went south, law enforcement sources said. It's unclear whether when the relationship began and ended. And according to sources familiar with the case, the man knew where the family kept the spare key at their well-kept Forest Hills Tudor and would have been able to access the home without breaking in. Gaal was stabbed nearly 60 times. Now, that is just really in itself, horrendous. She was stabbed 60 times in the wee hours Saturday inside the front of the home, with her corpse then taken to the basement. Now, that's very strange. Why would he kill her upstairs, drag her to the basement, then decide to place her into a black Bauer hockey bag, and then drag her back up and out and 9 blocks away? Why didn't he just leave her there and run? This is what's really throwing me off about the case. I find that very, very, very strange why a killer would do that. It's just odd. Now, the black Bauer hockey bag may have belonged to one of the kids. They had a similar one. And it says the pouch containing her body was then dragged outside and dumped about a half a mile away, which is probably between about a half a mile up to about 9 blocks from her house. It left behind a trail of blood. Now, this guy, if you think about it, whoever did this did not plan this out. This was not something that was planned. So that's why I'm not thinking it's a hit. It's definitely probably not a hit. This guy went in there with some kind of maybe anger. He got into an argument with her. He did not plan this, because anybody who could be that stupid, who could actually stab somebody 60 times, leave a bloodbath and loads of evidence. This is going to be definitely DNA. She fought back. There was some kind of defensive wounds on her hands, I believe. This guy's gonna get caught, and he did not plan it. Now, anyone stupid enough to kill the person on the first floor, drag them downstairs, drag them back upstairs. He was in that house for a while, and then drag her body several blocks away. That's no easy feat. I'm not trying to be really gross or anything, or uncouth here, but dead weight is very hard to pull. It's very awkward, especially with the body in a bag, to drag it that far. With a trail of blood, almost like Hansel and Gretel leaving crumbs behind. I mean, that's absolutely insane and stupid. with ring doorbells all over the place, surveillance, where he leaves her. Apparently, a bus even passed him by. Many MTA buses pass that area, and they have multiple security cameras all over the place. This guy is not smart. He's a dimwit, and he's going to get caught soon. I'm going to tell you. It's going to be very soon, but they're probably building up a case. Police believe that the killer knew Gaal because there were no signs of a break-in. And considering the violent nature of the crime, they suspect the attack was personal and fueled by anger specifically towards her. But the grisly slay did not appear to be premeditated, sources said. Detectives don't think it was a planned murder, a law enforcement source said. He left a trail of blood for 5 blocks from the house. Again, like I said, it was like a trail of breadcrumbs. If you want to kill somebody, you make it a little cleaner. Be a little more prepared. He didn't go with something to move her body. He took something from the house, the source said. That really makes sense. I'm sure with that kind of blood, there's a lot of DNA there, the source said. I'm sure under her fingernails, there's got to be his skin. There's got to be a lot of evidence. And apparently the DA, it took the DA until the evening of the day that they found her body to give a warrant to search the house, which was, I am like really disgusted by that. Because the quicker it is that they start collecting evidence, the easier it is to actually find evidence. Once the crime scene gets contaminated, people go in and out, the family members going in and out. I mean, how and why did the DNA do that? I don't understand. Okay, so there's a $3,500 reward. Generally, rewards are way higher, so I have a feeling they're onto something. They're not giving up that much money. Usually when they're desperate for tips or some kind of clues, they'll have like a $50,000 reward, a $100,000 reward. This is very telling, actually. Very telling. Again, here's another picture of the surveillance. It says... Yeah, here we go. NYPD sources told the Post on Tuesday that detectives had asked the Queens District Attorney's Office for a search warrant shortly after tracing the blood back to the house on Saturday morning. But investigators weren't given the warrant till early evening, costing them valuable time in gathering evidence, sources said. The DA's office did not immediately respond to a Post request for comment. Now, this is just absolutely maddening. It is really the most stupidest thing I have ever seen. I mean, really, I don't understand that. Okay, well, what are you going to do? Yeah, people are talking about how nice she was, how very sad it is. Apparently on Friday evening, she headed out with friends to see a show at Lincoln Center before returning to Queens around midnight, hitting a bar. Now, a lot of people find that really odd, but a lot of people in Queens go alone to a bar and just hang out, have a drink, and go home. She was within probably 5 or 10 minutes from the local bars. Austin Street is right over there. Austin Street, right by Woodhaven Boulevard. Queens Boulevard is really, I'm telling you guys, it's like the city compared to what you see here in the picture of this house. Hundreds and hundreds of stores, buildings, bars, nightlife. It's very different from what you're seeing from this picture. Yeah, her house was a 10-minute walk from the bar. And apparently the bartender where she was at the bar saw the bag on the way home from work. And he saw it as he was driving. And then he realized the next day, he said, I couldn't believe it when I heard it. It smacked me when I saw her picture. Because he passed the bag that morning, I guess on his way home. That's really strange. So that's basically what's going on right now. I have a feeling they're going to find him soon, and they're going to come to a conclusion of what the hell is going on. So if I find any updates, I'll come back. But pretty much the other true crime shows probably did this much better than I did. And they're way more prepared than me and would be able to show you pretty much a lot more information than I just told you. You pretty much know it all. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Let's just hope that this lowlife gets caught soon and gets thrown, behind bars, or actually, well, I don't even think we have the death penalty in New York anymore. But I'd like to see that bastard fry. Thanks for watching. So long.